at helping projects, but the projects basically raise capital from our network of investors. We have a network of 3 million investors worldwide. Yeah, if you know any Web3 projects or if you have a Web3 project, feel free to have a chat with me. If you're raising capital, let me know, and thanks. Thank you all for coming.
Awesome. So before we start the panel, I'll just run through our wonderful sponsors. So we have Shine, Jade City, Sonoso, the Digital Commonwealth, Kudos, Vault 12, Republic, Economy, and our wonderful principal sponsor for this month, Open Campus. Round of applause for all of those. We are. And Mo from Animator is just going to give us a couple of words on Open Campus, I believe. Cheers, mate.
Thank you. GM, or more like GN, everyone. So I'm Mo, I'm head of tokenomics and for brands, but today I'm here, I'll be wearing my Open Campus hat. Fundamentally, what Open Campus is, it's a DAO, it's an education protocol, and the token launched last year, April on Binance. So a lot of liquidity, we funded different initiatives. We have a $10 million global educator fund where teachers can fundamentally apply for grants to create meaningful content. We're focusing more on financial literacy because we see that as a big key to unlocking people's understanding of why ownership and digital assets are important. We also have another $10 million accelerator, which is looking at onboarding Web2 and Web3 edtech or education technology companies into the space. And I think later this month or next month, we're launching EDU Chain, which is our education chain. It's launching as a layer 3 on Arbitrum. And we're very excited about that. And we've run a number of hackathons. We've got thousands of developers building on there as well. So we're really looking forward at shaking up education, but also understand that it's such a legacy institution, so to speak, that we're trying to shake up. It's something that will take time. We're trying to find as many partners who want to join us on this journey. And hopefully you guys will learn more on the panel. But I won't take up any more of your time. Thank you.
I'm going to go straight over to Ade, who's going to kick off the panel for us. So round of applause for Ade.
Thank you so much, Ruth. And everyone in the room, a round of applause for you as well for making it out here in this dark, cold, wet evening in November. So this is going to be an interesting evening. I've come on to be the moderator, very, very last minute. I'm totally unprepared, but let's see what happens. So my journey into crypto started in 2017. Back then I was still in, please come in. Back then I was still in PwC as a consultant, and I was asked to write an article, a feature article actually, about how Web3 was going to transform the asset management world. This was picked up by a number of our prominent clients, including this VC firm in Germany that approached me and asked me to be an associate of theirs. Since then, it's been one interesting role after the other. I've led grants for Oasis, I've been head of BD for NIM, as well as Polkadot. Now I'm working on a number of initiatives, one of them including being last minute panel moderator for Monday's London. So without further ado, I'd like to invite my panel to the stage. First up is Sean Kernan. I hope I pronounced your name properly.
Yes.
Sean is founder and CEO of GreenGage, bringing a finance perspective. Sean will discuss how GreenGage leverages blockchain to create sustainable financial practices and promote environmental accountability. Please put your hands together. Next, we have Mo from Animoca and Open Campus. Mo will share insights on how Open Campus is decentralizing education, making learning more accessible and rewarding. Mo, please come on down. And next, we have Lavinia from Women in Blockchain Talks, WIBT for short. Lavinia will highlight efforts in inclusivity, showing how blockchain empowers underrepresented communities through DAOs and decentralized governance. Lavinia. Next we have Josh from Crypto Mondays Global.
No, Josh isn't
Oh.
here. Josh is the moderator.
And Brian Sanya Wando.
Yeah.
He's a dual qualified barrister and a CM Caribbean.
Crypto Mondays Caribbean.
Oh, sorry. Crypto Mondays Caribbean. Brian brings a legal perspective discussing blockchain's impact on regulatory compliance, intellectual property, and cross-border legal services across the Caribbean.
Wow.
Come on down. So before we get into the panel, was I meant to announce?
Now.
Okay,
You can do the men's meeting.
sure. And now we have the mentor meter.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you'd all like to scan the QR code, we like a QR code. So the first question is, what's your primary goal for attending tonight's event?
He's anonymous, by the way. That's worth saying.
Yes, and it's all anonymous, so don't be scared to vote.
There, I thought all of you guys were here for us.
Okay, so it looks like to network with like-minded people. Have it. Thank you. And then the next question. Which best describes you? Founder, developer, trader, investor, marketer, lawyer, student, other. Okay, we have a lot of others in the room. Okay, it's fair to say we have others in the room. And okay, so we have some investors and some marketers, but most of us are other. Welcome others. And I believe this is the final question. What do you think is blockchain's most socially significant use case? Oh, a good meme coin. Any goat holders in the room?
No.
Goats? Doge?
Yeah.
Yes. Department of Government Efficiency. All right. DeFi. DeFi has it. I love DeFi as well. DeFi is good. All right, let's move on. Okay. So, what you've all been waiting for. I'm going to ask all the panel members, in no particular order, how did you get to this place in life, between a career for money and working for a higher purpose? Who'd like to start? Lavinia?
Okay, sure.
Good evening, everyone. Great to be here, and always great to be on the panel for Crypto Monday London. Okay, so how did I get here? Well, first of all, I started in blockchain about 7 years ago. I had my own business. It was called Buffalo Wealth Creation. It was all about financial education and how does one understand finances. And when you're talking to someone about their past, present, and future of money, you need to understand what the future landscape of finance is and how it's developing and how it's changing. And so off the back of that, I started to learn and understand about Bitcoin. And then I started hearing about blockchain. And of course, I thought they were one and the same, and of course, they are not. And so off the back of that, I decided that I needed to educate myself. And I thought one of the best ways to learn is to get a job in the space, and I did. and it was an awesome introduction into blockchain and cryptocurrency. But I found that I was the only female in the room, and there was like 14 men and 1 woman. So I decided to do something about it, and I put on an event, and I called it blockchain, Bitcoin, and I wanted to call it bitches, but it wasn't allowed. So I called it babes, and there were some people who were and like you laugh, but the thing is, sometimes in order to get people interested in the subject, you need to talk to them on their levels, on what they will kind of like respond to in a jokey, social way. And so I called it babes, and there were some people who were like up in awe about it, but it worked because it ended up that loads of women came to the event, and we had more women come to work at the company that I worked at. After I left there, I decided to start a community for women, and hence Women in Blockchain Talks was born. And the reason it was called Women in Blockchain Talks is I said I wanted to be the Oprah of blockchain. And that's where I am, and so that's where we started. And it's all just about how we can entice people who are new to this space to learn and to engage and to help build this growing industry.
Thank you, Lavinia. Sean, would you like to chime in?
Yeah, I don't have as august a background. So I came into blockchain almost through accident. I moved to the UK in 2010 and built a bank within Credit Suisse, which was acquired by the first bank in the world to do crypto for clients. This was back in 2017. So if you can hear, we allow clients to buy and sell Bitcoin on the platform. But for me, it was about the plumbing, if you will, of financial services changing, and that was what got me excited to set up Green Gauge. And the plumbing bit is less sexy than what most people think about, but the way it can achieve efficiencies and costs and things allowed us to, I think, bring back banking to where it should be, which is looking after clients before. So that's what I got excited about.
Yeah. Very interesting. So we've got blockchain babes, we've got blockchain plumber. And please, Mo, would you like to introduce yourself and how you came into this space?
Absolutely. So I was sent the Bitcoin white paper in 2017, and I'm a mathematician by trade, so it blew my mind. It gave me an orgasm, if I can say that. I would say a mathematical orgasm, so to speak. There was a bit of Fibonacci in there as well. But all jokes aside, that really opened up my mind. But my background is also in education, and I was a secondary school teacher for 10 years prior to pivoting into this space. So for me, it's always about how can we use a new form of technology to add value. And what's super important about blockchain technology is it's actually the ownership that we have. And a lot of us don't realize the power of that ownership, but also because it's something that's fundamentally online, in addition to being on-chain, it transcends national boundaries, which makes it super interesting when it comes to government, when it comes to DeFi, when it comes to the tribal instinct we have as people and how we can organize society in a slightly different way with a new form of technology and monetization and governance around that. So it's how can we build a more equitable world, sort of my calling, within the space.
Thank you. And last but not least, Brian.
Right. My background, so I started off as a DJ, okay? So my side gig was doing events in East Africa. So when you organize concerts, you have vendors, you know, but the returns, so they're supposed to pay you for the space and all that. But then when you're doing the returns, the math wasn't adding up, okay? So we started moving into cashless ticketing. So if you go to these festivals, all you need is your wristband, okay? So to get rid of theft at the point of sale. So it was working well, but still we needed just visibility. We needed to see what was happening end to end. Then Ethereum happened, and there was the whole thing about smart contracts. So we really didn't understand what smart contracts were and how they could help us achieve transparency and that visibility. So COVID happened. So we we were experimenting with things, But then COVID happened and the world came to a standstill. And, we used that time to learn and go into each and every conference, literally every conference online, we were there to understand how this technology works and what it can do for end-to-end visibility. Then living in Trinidad then, nobody understands this thing, like what's blockchain, what's Bitcoin, what can it do? So because I practice IP and commercial law, I was like, we have to spread knowledge. We have to, so when there's the gold rush, we want to be the guys supplying the buckets and the shovel to the gold rush, basically. So the best way to educate the world is, or to change the world rather, is to empower women and kids. So we provide free courses for women and kids in Africa and in the Caribbean. We have boot camps and all that because we want to empower the future generations. Like people in this room, probably we're all old at this point. So 15 years from now, the kids today, the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas coming about, we just want to change the world. So we do it for free, give it for people, reward them using tokens as well, just to make the agenda work. Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're gonna stay on you for a bit, but one overriding theme I've noticed here is there's a deep-seated conviction that everyone's spoken about for them entering the space. We get a bad rap for being in crypto. It's all about the gains, it's all about the alphas, but we've seen here that it's a lot more than that. And moving on from that, what do you see as a wicked problem blockchain helps solve, and how do you fit it? How do you think we can solve it?
Okay, my approach to blockchain, first of all, is blockchain is a data governance engine. So aside from my legal practice, like this is my area of research, like PhD research. I'm currently working on the use of researching to what extent blockchain and smart contracts could improve trust and transparency in public procurement. So blockchain is like the stapler, like there's so many things coming about, there's so much hype, but at the end of the day, you're looking at it as a ledger that allows you to see the record, like it allows you to see into things, depending on the permissions you have, either private or public, but it just allows you to track things, follow the chain. Let's say when there's assets have been dissipated, let's say your NFTs like Lavinia was stolen and all that, it allows law enforcement to follow the chain in ways that traditional law enforcement or traditional means could not achieve. So it just allows that. Yeah.
So I'm gonna play devil's advocate here. Imagine I'm using a database or a CRM, for instance. It's Monday.com. You've logged into it. You've changed a bunch of things. I've logged into it and I've changed some stuff. The Monday.com will tell you that Ade logged in last, so maybe he's the culprit. Maybe he's the one that you should be going after. What's different when it comes to blockchain?
Well, depending on, okay, so I'm not a techie. Leave that to more the people who do the tech stuff. But if you set the parameters properly, like the smart contracts, if you don't meet the required parameters, the smart contracts won't even work. So it allows you to build other layers on it. So it allows you different levels of functionality. I look at it like electricity. You can have electricity for a casino, you can have electricity for schools, you can have it for a fridge or whatever it is. So it's the functionality that you impute on this technology. That's where the sweet spot is.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I just wanted to.
Yeah.
Okay, Lavinia, let's come to you. What is most promising for women entering the space? What can the bull run do for women, especially in low-income and rural communities? And
tell us about the DAO.
Okay, so first of all, is it? Hello? Okay, all right. So first of all, Women in Blockchain Talks is a community that is open to all genders. And when I speak to everyone, but of course the audience or the target audience are women, because there's not, in my opinion, not enough women in the space and building in the space or have the confidence to build in the space. And so with that being said, there has research has been carried out, and it shows, because we talk about financial literacy, and this is a subject that's still quite important just in society, full stop. There's lots of people who just don't understand how money works, how it's created, how it has an impact, what APR is, if you print money, how it makes inflation go up, etc., etc. Most people don't understand that. And of course, one of the Bitcoin white paper came off the back of the financial crash back in 2008. So it was a direct consequence to that. And it touches on the point of what Mo was saying, ownership. How can we have more control and responsibility over how the economy works, right? So with that being said, the research showed that more individuals, particularly women, from lower backgrounds, because they felt like they didn't have access, because there's a gatekeeper, there's a higher access to certain finances, you have to be an investor level, so to speak. They couldn't enter that, and therefore they weren't given the opportunity to make their money work hard for them, rather than them just working hard for it. And what Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies allows individuals to do is to enter the financial market in a way that suits them. And so the research actually showed that there was a lot more women, and a lot more women from diverse backgrounds, because they were privy to it. Not only were they privy to it, they were looking for a solution, right? So if you're looking for that whole saying, seek and you shall find. And so they were looking for a solution, and even if they were only able to put in $10 a month, $100 a month, that's what they could afford. And so this was one of the reasons why I really was like, wow, I'm interested in blockchain, and this is why I have a love for crypto. Yes, I know the market is horrific at times, but I appreciate the accessibility, because accessibility leads to equity. And so for me, that's the reason why I feel that crypto is a really great way, not only to build your financial literacy and financial well-being, but also have some sort of responsibility and ownership of how you develop your financial economy, your own personal financial economy. In regards to the DAO and Women in Blockchain Talks, that's something that we're working on, but we do have global chapters. And with that, we have global chapters in Tampa, Barcelona, in Brighton. We've got our global chapter leader here in the house. And so we're very international. And what that brings is different perspectives. Because you can't talk about diversity and inclusivity without involving and advocating for different people from around the world and different cultures and languages to come into the space. And so that's what Women in Blockchain Talks does. And off the back of that, we're building the community, and then, of course, what will follow is that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. And I totally agree. Blockchain creates accessibility for those who wouldn't have it if not for this technology. For instance, A16Z just published their State of Crypto 2024, and unsurprisingly, stables were one of the best use cases, because they're allowing you to do remittance for pennies compared to what the likes of Western Union would allow you to.
Exactly.
So, Brian, what comes to you? I can open my phone. Tell us about the connection between the lawyer thing and the bootcamp thing. How do sponsors and elbow grease fit in together to the work you're doing? These aren't my questions, by the way.
Yeah, sure. Okay. First of all, how to recognize Gateway, because I'm working on this project with Gateway. So we have we have Crypto Mondays Caribbean, and we just recently launched Crypto Mondays Africa as well. And the lawyer thing helps in terms of understanding policy and the regulatory compliance aspect, where there's where there's gaps and how we could adequately fill those gaps. Okay. It also helps in terms of speaking to sponsors because they're like, okay, this guy kind of understands or has foresight of what he's talking about. The reception in developing countries when it comes to blockchain and all these projects is they still don't see it. And I think that's not unique to these countries as well, because also here in the UK, the policymakers are still not seeing it. People like the FCA, they're like, if you touch it, then literally, like, when things go tits up, that's your fault, okay? In the US as well, and the understanding of how different things sit together, like securities and commodities and all these futures and all that, nobody understands that. So what we are trying to do is we have a 3 to 4 step process under Crypto Mondays, Caribbean and Africa, is we have the bootcamp, okay? So we have a 2-week intensive bootcamp, and we literally have the best of the best of the best coming on our platforms. So without bigging ourselves up so much, like literally we roll with like the best. So TRM Labs, whoever, Caitlin, Josh, Lavinio's on bootcamp as well, Blockchain Sensei, so like literally we're rolling deep. Now, for the 2 weeks, the first week is like the basics, the fundamentals. So blockchain 101, moving to smart contracts, NFTs, metaverse, and then how the regulatory compliance stuff works. Because in my experience with founders, nobody cares about the legal stuff until stuff goes tits up. Okay, so we want to give our students a very full picture as to how things happen. Then the second week, we now go into proper business. So Blockchain Sensei and Kish with his agency called Air come in and teach people how to now build companies, like networking, like what's happening here, like identifying VCs and all that. Then we have a 3-day idea then. So like recently we had like 600 students. So our numbers as well, they're deep. So 600 students, asking them to come up with ideathons, and we literally sift down to the best 15 ideathons, ideas rather. Then stage 2 is a real life ideathon into hackathon. So our first stage 2 will be in January in Barbados. So we're going to have it hybrid, and you have like 100 people from all over the world in the room and virtually presenting the ideas Shark Tank style, as in why they have to make it. And this is all Web3 blockchain, okay? Because we know that's where the world is heading to. And with a recent partnership that's coming about, we're going to take people into a residence where like this is a proper venture builder. We're going to take them to Paris for 12 weeks to be taught blockchain and to be future blockchain entrepreneurs. Then they come back to us for stage 4, where we take them to the market. So it's not one of those venture builders where if you don't make it, we forget about you. We don't leave any soldier behind, okay? So that's our mission and vision, yeah.
Amazing. And are you recruiting for your next cohort? How do people sign up?
Yeah, so we actually are opening registrations next week, I think on the 25th. So just come to the blockchainlex.io/academy. If you just go to blockchainlex.io/academy, you'll see the previous registration form, but we're opening it up to the bootcamp and to the hackathon. So you don't have to apply into our bootcamp to get into the hackathon. It's also open to the world, but it's a rigorous assessment, and we actually do assess to graduate from our course. It's literally assessed. You sit an exam, and because literally our time and money has to be into something that we know when it hits the ground, it's going to be worth the while. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, sounds like you mean business. So, I'm going to pass the mic to Sean. So I've been asked to ask you to put this to bed. Can proof of work coins like Bitcoin and Doge support ESG?
Yes. That's the easy answer. I might give a much longer explanation.
Yeah. I mean, there's a follow-on question.
Yeah.
Why did you make the shift towards green finance? What are the advantages for companies to use GreenGage in terms of ESG, PR, and bottom line?
Perfect. So first, maybe I'll just describe what GreenGage is. I call this a Web3 fintech, but we address two things. One, people probably aren't aware that 140,000 businesses lost their accounts from UK banks last year. It's a real issue in this country, and I know Nigel Farage kind of popularized it. Probably not the best name to be the flag bearer, but importantly, I think he raised awareness that there is an issue, and banks are de-risking. There's a broad theme here. And the other thing that the banks are doing is lending less to SMEs, to small, medium-sized businesses, in real terms than they were even 10 years ago. So this is an issue for the economy at large, productivity. You need to invest in small businesses to get growth. Here's why I like blockchain and plumbing, because we can address some of these inefficiencies by using the technology to open up access. So it's not just the D-bank, it's the underbanked, the unbanked, all these big themes. And what GreenGage does is deliver accounts to crypto-friendly businesses, but not exclusively. We also give accounts to SMEs, and we facilitate lending, but in a Web3 way. So we're here doing kind of an eBay market making, connecting dots between people that have money and people that don't, and looking to borrow. We've done over 300 million now of loans, sometimes crypto-backed loans, for example. And what we've launched recently with a collaboration with Coinbase is to tokenize private credit. So as banks are lending less, non-bank lenders have filled the space, typically expensive or more expensive than bank lending. And what we're looking to achieve is just some savings, so maybe 1% off the cost to borrow. But that is material when you think of private credit being a $2 trillion asset class, projected to be over $10 trillion within a decade. So this is a massive space, and just shaving off a little bit of that cost gives money back to the little guy. And also, we hope gives more money overall because you get better yields. That's a big theme. But to answer your question, why we're keen on kind of the green side, sustainability, is there's an aspect of crypto which is more philanthropic. I think it's a principles-based sector. People are giving a much higher share of crypto wealth. We have a group on LinkedIn called Crypto Philanthropy, which if anybody wants to join, feel free, it's open. But there's platforms like Giving Block, which is a crypto donation platform that has opened up over $200 million of giving via crypto to needy causes and more quickly. So you see the likes of the war in Ukraine, or earthquakes or disasters that would happen in Turkey. Money goes very quickly from a space that has made money, often from maybe initially libertarian angles, but eventually through a more broader social good angle. And that's just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what the tech actually opens up. And for me, it's the two objectives the regulators now have around innovation and competition that I think crypto actually delivers, or blockchain more broadly. And you mentioned one already with remittances. If we can compete with Western Union at their own game, sending money via stablecoins, Western Union maybe drops a little bit of their fees in competition, and that saves people that aren't even using crypto. So that diversity of payment rails helps to kind of sharpen the pencil, if you will, on fees. And on innovation, we have a collaboration with a tokenization project called Blue Carbon Gold, which is looking to tokenize kind of swamps in the sense of mangroves and innovative areas that protect from a carbon credit perspective, very high generating assets. And we wouldn't be able to do this kind of micro lending relatively if it didn't have that lower barriers to entry to be able to access these kind of asset classes in a more cost competitive way.
Thank you. And the final question for you, Sean.
Could you guys hear me? I'm so sorry. It's super polite.
I was like, I'm sitting right here.
Great, apologies, I can repeat it, but you probably don't want to.
So is there a threshold for getting onboarded onto GreenGate? Do you need to be a very, very large company, or can you be a tiny SME with like 2 people?
So we definitely take a view on fees if it's an innovative business. Our model has to be slightly a threshold to get in. We unfortunately can't do retail because we get to know the client, and that means people are involved, and that's not cheap. But we charge for individuals £750 a year, so it's higher. But for businesses, we can go down to £1,000 a year. So we're much lower than other crypto-friendly platforms.
Very good, thank you. And Mo, I've got a question for you.
Hit me.
Tell us the vision of Open Campus and why we should incentivize teachers. Why can't poor kids just use AI tutors?
There's 2 different questions. They can, but they need access to the technology. So the vision for Open Campus, and sort of to follow on from maybe the intro right at the beginning, is really to shake up the way education is done. We know there are so many layers within education, there's a lot of fraud and a lot of red tape bureaucracy, if you like, that trying to change something as historic as education, as we've seen maybe with the financial sector as well, is quite challenging. So understanding that people need to see that something works in a different way for there to begin to be adoption. And with the idea of Open Campus came about maybe 2 years ago. Us as Animoca Brands, we acquired an educational technology company called TinyTap. This was a Web2 company. Their business model was very simple. Parents in schools pay a subscription, teachers come on and create content in a gamified way, and then the profit that's generated is shared between the content creators and between the platform. This is Web2, nothing to do with Web3. We like to hypothesis test as well. So an idea is, how can we tokenize some of the revenue that's being generated in a way that's compliant? And we came up with this idea of what we call a co-publisher NFT, where we look at the highest grossing games on the platform. We bundled up 80% of the revenue, or the future revenue to be generated. We did a proof of concept with 6 publisher NFTs. This was November 22. We followed up with another 6 in December 22. We ended up raising from selling 12 NFTs around $400,000. But what was super interesting is half of that went to the teachers. So you had an elementary school teacher in the US walking away with somewhere in $2,000 to $36,000, $37,000. Now that's more than her yearly wage. So we knew there was something there and there was an appetite. So we went from there to, we're going to shake up education. There was a big jump there, but there wasn't an incumbent in the space. So many people going for the whole learn to earn and so on and so forth, but a lot of it was very superficial. So we thought, well, now that we have this, we have an idea of what we want to do. And again, I mentioned I was a high school teacher or a secondary school teacher for 10 years. So education is something that's very close to my heart. Well, what can we do? And we started off with TinyTap at the base or at the heart of Open Campus. But what we quickly realized is in Web3 or in any business, you need distribution. And TinyTap as a platform caters for your age 3 to about 11 or 12. So that there's a very limited, maybe addressable market that's there. So we thought, okay, well, we need to onboard more teachers, and we put a proposal to the DAO. Again, it is launched as a DAO for a $10 million global educator fund. That was signed off, and then we hit the next stumbling block, that there's a big education barrier for normies, if you like, specifically teachers, to come in and actually who know about this, to be able to apply for grants and apply for funding. So we realized that we needed distribution, so we put up another, when we say we, it's not just Animoca, it's with the right partners, put up a DAO proposal for another $10 million fund, which is focused on onboarding. It's an accelerator, which is focusing on onboarding the next 100 edtech companies into Web3, be it Web2 or Web3. In doing so and then just growing the network, we also realized that student loans, and you were speaking about just access to financing being super difficult. Student loans is one of the biggest killers that exists today for anyone who's going through education. Quick show of hands, how many of us are still paying off our student debt? Okay, so I'd say about 40% of the people in the audience still paying off your student debt, and it's gotten worse for anyone new coming into education as of today. So finding ways where you can onboard students coming in through the financialization or the de-risking maybe some of the financialization around debt, but also onboarding them into an ecosystem where they can add value. And then there are different ways to add value within that. So that's really the vision. I mean, Open Campus from TGE, or when the token was launched, were about a year and a half old. So it's still very early in our mission, but already there's been so much traction around it that it's just finding the right partners to build with, because you do not shake up an industry like education by yourself. You need an army of people who are like-minded, who are willing to take on ownership and responsibility to make a difference.
Oh, thank you so much. And another question for you is, why is this so important for Animoca?
So Yap, the co-founder and executive chairman of Animoca Brands, is one of the biggest believers in education. He also is a big believer in equitable finance and ownership. So when we talk about these as underlying pillars, what we've seen, one of the biggest challenges with Web3 is actually this idea of ROI, of making money. And most of the people who are attracted, at least me when I got into the space, I read Bitcoin, I got excited, and I discovered ICOs in 2017. And all logic went out the window, and it was, how can I turn X into 2X, into 10X, which is a big draw for a lot of people. But in doing so, we've actually attracted the wrong crowd, because what we don't have are enough builders in the space. We have a lot of people who are financializing all of these possible returns. So that's why education, especially on financial literacy, becomes super important, and why Open Campus then becomes super important as well, because it gets to be that net or umbrella that everything can fall underneath, and it is a DAO, so it's open to anyone. Voting structure is very basic. One token is one vote. The token EDU is the ticker. As of today, it's sitting about somewhere between 50 and 60 cents. So it's a very cheap entry point for you to be able to enter the ecosystem. But in doing so, it gives you access to a much wider ecosystem. And again, it's how can we build together and build something sustainable and meaningful? Because education isn't something that you get into it to make money. It's more the case of, I'm coming into this to make a difference. But if we can financialize at the same time, then why not?
Exactly. And it's interesting you mentioned 2017. I remember back then they had blockchain for dentists, they had blockchain for golf. This is blockchain for education, but education is the genesis of everything. So it's just as important as blockchain for finance, which is what's leading the pack right now. So with that, I just want to say thank you, Mo. Thank you, Sean, Lavinia, and Brian. You've been listening to all of these amazing speakers talk about their convictions, what brings them out of bed in the morning. And I just want to thank you for being an amazing audience and keeping up with me this evening. Thank you. And now we're gonna open up the floor to the Q&A section.
Don't be scared, there are no silly questions.
Does anyone have a question? Anyone? Yes.
Hello everyone, sorry for being so late, ultra late. I caught up in the last minutes really of the whole thing, but I'm really excited about what I'm seeing from the US. What do you think about next year? What's going to happen once we have the new administration in place, and what do you expect to happen? And that's an open question to whoever wants to answer it.
Who wants to go first?
I mean, great question. Crypto is narrative, and one of the biggest things that stifle innovation is regulation. And what we've seen from the SEC in general has been a stifling of innovation, or maybe a specific vendetta by a certain man named Gary. He may not be in seat much longer. But like, all jokes aside, I think that the US being the leading force that it is in the space right now, having a pro-crypto stance and a change of direction, it's less the impact on the US, but it's more the knock-on effect that it has on so many other countries who look after the US as a lead. And that sort of it bodes well for crypto. We saw the instant reaction from the price action to Bitcoin, where it's just like it broke through all-time high, and then it broke through all-time high again, and then I think we're at like 92K now. So it's in the space of what, when a week, 10 days now? I don't know how long it's been. 10 days. And like, the guy hasn't even taken power yet. It's just we know he's coming in to take power on January 25. So it's a positive step. So for me, I'm quite excited by it, because in the role that I do when we're trying to design different ecosystems and how we tokenize these ecosystems and how we can incentivize people to add value, our biggest restriction is always legal, is always regulation. So having some of these friction points removed, or at least given clear guidelines or guidance on what can and can't be done, means you don't have to delve in the grey as much. Less grey, more black and white.
I just want to add that, yeah, I'm super excited about 2025 and how the market is opening and how crypto is raising in price, because it gives people confidence. But I truly do believe that the people who, or I hope that the people who are in the space are here for the right reasons, are going to continue to build for the right reasons. So it's not just going to be focused on how much money we can quickly make or what the big NFTs or meme coins are. And I think this conversation, blockchain for good, you know, I think it's a conversation that needs to be continued to have, because a lot of people don't know what they don't know. Like I was having a conversation with Sean just a moment ago, and I was talking about how one of the chapters that we have in Tampa, we want to utilize tokenization and blockchain technology to help people who have gone through human trafficking or survivors of human trafficking. This is something that that doesn't get talked about. We talk about more the financial elements rather than the social impact or societal ills, and how we can use this technology for good and to empower and to give ownership, as you touched upon. So that's what I want to see. And if there's more liquidity in the market, I hope that people will want to utilize that to fund these sorts of projects. So that's what I hope for 2025.
I can only echo that. I think we see a lot of firms waiting to get in. And the real tipping point for money is when regulatory clarity is there, and we're just about there. But it's been a long time coming. And the UK is still in the wings. We don't have any unicorns in our space in the UK, which is pretty unusual. And I'm going back to finance, forgive me, but in the fintech space, there's obviously some big names. We know Revolut, Starling, etc. But in the UK, there's zero. And in the US, about half of the over 100 unicorns are based, which is great, given that they had a certain Gary in post. But I think we've been following a bit too much the risk-off mentality. And I'm hoping that as that cloud shifts, we can finally engage with the builders that have been going on for a long time in the background to come out and do the big things that we've all been trying to do. So we're looking forward to the sun kind of shining from the dawn, but we're not there yet.
Well, I just think, you know, the bull run is happening. It's great here, but I'm really pro utility, okay? And I think with the ongoing bull run, people are gonna be like, okay, cool. So let's see what happens underneath on this other side as well. So it kind of brings out overall acceptance. And you know, we also need to have interoperability. Interoperability, yeah. So there's different regulations, different countries. You need to see how they interact, basically. Okay, so things like regulations from FATF or recommendations from FATF and MiCA, and you know, like there's so much going on, and some of them they don't gel well with each other. Some of them are more confusing as opposed to bringing clarity. So yeah, let's see how it goes. But I'm really excited for 2025 actually, for utility as opposed to the bull run.
Any more questions?
Yes, I've got a question. I've got a question for Brian, but it's open to the whole panel. So, coming from East Africa, can I ask which country in East Africa?
Kenya.
Kenya, okay. And what do you see the potential being for blockchain technology in African countries, and specifically around the ownership and possibly even like cross-border transfers or P2P transfers, banking, to say?
Cool. Which East African are you from?
Well, I grew up in South Africa, but I've been
Right, okay,
Tanzania.
right. Okay, pause. Yeah, so I was literally speaking with Sean about this before the session started, and you see, in Africa, there's a resistance from the governance, okay? They just make things difficult. But there's an uptake, and the uptake is not when it comes to the old guard, it's with the new school, okay? So for us to succeed, we have to empower the new school. And then they take the power from the old school. Otherwise it won't happen. Because in Kenya, there's like so much potential. In Nigeria, there's so much potential. But there's other places where literally there's no activity. And the same applies in the Caribbean as well. You'll see like some countries are really, we're pro this, but they're not quite pro this. It's just because most of these institutions are registered there. So you think, for example, in Cayman, it's pro tech and all that. It's just because the institutions are being registered there. The people on the ground have no clue what's going on, okay? So it's literally word of mouth, spreading the gospel aggressively. And that's what we are really trying to do in both continents, like spreading it aggressively and dealing with the generation that understands this change. Because when you keep talking to the old guard, they don't understand none of this. So just keep pushing and keep pushing forward. Yeah.
Thanks. We've got someone with a question over here. Caitlin, just in front of me.
Can I ask questions? Hello, good evening. Thank you very much for all that you shared. I think it's been a long time coming because it's like every time I, go to crypto meetups, it's usually this latest DeFi app, this latest whatever it is. There's not a lot of, I feel that there's not a lot of talk about meaningful projects for me. I mean, I've been in this space for quite a few years now, and even in Spain and stuff, and it's all about what's the latest blockchain, what's the latest whatever it is, And I've done a few hackathons as well. So the projects are usually like, oh, how do we win the top prize? We don't care what it does, but it's cool. So how do you think we can continue to encourage the builders to come out who actually are in it for the freedom, for the trusted, for the transparency, for utility, for education? How do you think we can continue to encourage people, and also who are normal people, like educators who are not in the space, to come in? Because encourage them that it's not that weird or scary. Yeah.
I think it's a great question. I mean, I think there's a lot happening already, but what I feel is when we talk about education, we talk about all of these things aren't sexy. Like to your point, the latest DeFi app is sexy. Something that's going to generate revenue is sexy. Someone that's backed by these big KOLs, there's a lot more attraction to it. And what we've seen in crypto, it's an attention economy. So whoever has the attention, that will translate to price action, translate into a higher floor price for NFTs, for example, more volume within the token. But it's also the tribal aspect, where someone is like, I'm an ETH maxi or I'm a Solana maxi. But what we need to be doing is actually putting aside some of the tribalistic mentalities and get like, it's just holding hands and singing Kumbaya, if you like, or maybe not that much, but get all the like-minded individuals together so the voice can be one. Because what I feel right now is there is so much attention around meme coins, for example, and I'm a big fan of meme coins, fundamentally because it's, in theory, it's fair launch. there are no VCs behind it. It's by the community for the community. So there's a lot of things that are right in meme coins, but they also tend to be zero sum, where it will pump, but then it will also dump, but it will like wither away into oblivion. And we have a few that have sort of escaped or have hit like escape velocity to be able to grow past that. But then back to your question, like there needs to be less tribalism and more coming together, because you have so many different foundations in the space. And we can talk about the EDU and Open Campus, where we are trying to fund different initiatives, but there's only so many initiatives one entity can fund. So it's finding like-minded entities and sort of starting off with smaller groupings and then finding adjacent groups and bringing them in together, so we can focus more on the utility, on the governance, on things that matter, not just what's fun and sparkly and sexy on this layer.
Yeah, I'd love to add to that. I think one of the key things is advocacy, and it's like what you said, people have to be intentional and purposeful about going out there and speaking to the different communities. Like one of my strategies, I look at associations, okay? Because associations will have people, will have businesses, will have followers, and a lot of them are on Web 2. So if I can speak to somebody at the head of that association and, you know, open up a dialogue, then generally that can allow me to go in and then maybe do a talk around blockchain. But to touch on what you were saying, it's like partnership. Partnership is, you know, we can't do it singularly. We're not an island, and partnerships are very important. One of the things that Women in Blockchain Talks are looking to do is to create an accelerator program that's focusing, because I do feel, and you know, anyone can correct me if that, you know, everyone can agree to disagree, but I find that women, when it comes to social impact issues, they generally lead on that more than men do. And so what I want to do is start a beta accelerator around women, Web3 and social impact, and create those use case studies. And I think doing something like that in partnership with an organisation that has that network to help push forward that accelerator will help shine spotlight on women, or not even necessarily women, but leaders who want to lead in that area, as well as shine a spotlight on those use cases. But it's to do with partnerships and intentionality.
I think as a sector, we have a really bad PR problem. There's been scams and sandbag for free, and what we haven't had is people singing the praises of the good things. It's one of the reasons we set up this crypto philanthropy group, and I'm really excited about this panel because there are a lot of good things happening. We've heard real life cases where people are moving the needle to actually help others using the technology. Unfortunately, we haven't had great coverage in the FT or most mainstream press to highlight those cases. Most mainstream press likes the scams and the news, unfortunately, because it sells papers. And I think we need to sing a little bit louder to say this is actually where we're helping. Education, I think, is a huge deal, and not just for people on the street, but for people in the top positions. And a lot of this is scary. If you don't know what Web3 means, or crypto, or Bitcoin, these types of terms are not easy to break into. We did a glossary with UK Finance in the City of London just to help policymakers feel that they have a better understanding of what these terms mean and they can ask questions without having to sound stupid, which they're all afraid of sounding because these are people that should know these things. And I think the legal profession has been great to kind of de-risk it on that level. But for people that have been building to have those environments, but the last piece that has been tricky is the speculative side of crypto has drawn capital away from the builders. VCs love the quick returns, the high risk. And unfortunately, I think a lot of that money that maybe in other sectors would have gone towards longer duration builds has been shifted towards quick bucks. And that, I hope, with a bit of education, can show that, particularly if we have more success stories, there is a use case, maybe not to get 1,000x in a week, but a 10x in a couple of years. And I think there are real businesses that we're starting to see emerge that have done that, if not as many in the UK as I would like.
Thank you so much. So those are all the questions that we actually had time for this evening. But again, you've been an amazing audience. And please speak amongst yourselves, help yourself to beer, to wine, to soft drinks, and please give yourselves and the audience a wonderful round of applause.